The moment no one comes welcome, take a breath. If you're here right now, you're probably holding more than you show. There's a moment most people don't talk about. It comes late, after the messages stop, after the house goes quiet, when you check your phone one last time and realize nothing is coming. No call, no reassurance, no one stepping in to make sense of it for you. Just you, sitting with what didn't work out, what wasn't noticed, what went unanswered. That moment feels heavy at first, almost personal, like the world looked straight through you and kept moving. But here's the part most people miss. That silence isn't a verdict, it's a doorway. Because when no one comes to rescue you, something else becomes possible. You stop waiting. You stop explaining. You stop shaping your life around being seen. And in that space, a quieter strength begins to surface. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Tonight isn't about numbing that moment. It's about understanding it and learning what it's actually trying to give you. Let's step into it together. The silence you felt a moment ago doesn't disappear. It lingers. It follows you into the next thought. Because deep down, many of us were carrying a quiet belief. Not something we ever said out loud, just something we absorbed. That if we heard enough, someone would notice. You don't plan it. You don't announce it. It shows up in small ways. You stay quiet a little longer than you should. You don't correct the misunderstanding. You let the weight show in your voice, just slightly. You think maybe if they hear it, they'll ask. Maybe if they see the cracks, they'll step closer. Late at night, you replay the day. You remember the moment you could have spoken and the moment you didn't. You tell yourself there was dignity in staying silent. But under that dignity was hope, a soft hope that someone would read between the lines. Most people learn this pattern early. At home, in school, in relationships where attention came only after distress. You learn that pain is a signal, that suffering earns a response. So, you internalize it. If I carry this quietly, someone will sense it. If I'm patient enough, someone will meet me halfway. If I don't complain, someone will care more. But life rarely works that way. You can be exhausted and still expected to perform. You can be overwhelmed and still be overlooked. You can be breaking inside while the world keeps asking for more. And the hardest part isn't that no one notices. It's realizing how much energy you spent waiting to be noticed. Think about the small rituals of that waiting. Checking your phone, refreshing an inbox, walking into a room hoping someone will pick up on your mood, holding back just enough to make the pain visible, without saying it out loud. It's not manipulation. It's conditioning. We were taught that being seen equals being valued. That if someone responds, we matter. And if they don't, something must be wrong with us. But here's where Stoic thinking cuts through the fog. The Stoics didn't deny pain. They denied the fantasy that pain entitles us to rescue. Not because they were harsh, but because they were precise. They understood that most suffering doesn't come from events. It comes from the story we attach to them. The event is silence. The story is, I don't matter. The event is a missed call. The story is, if I mattered, they would have shown up. And that story quietly becomes a verdict on your worth. This is where things get dangerous. Because when your sense of value depends on being noticed, your life slows down. You hesitate. You postpone decisions. You wait for permission that never arrives. You don't fully commit to the next step. You don't fully let go of the past. You hover in between, hoping for a signal. The Stoics called this misplaced control. You're trying to manage what isn't yours to manage. Other people's attention. Other people's priorities. Other people's capacity. Epictetus was clear about this. Some things are up to you. Some things aren't. Confusing the two is the root of anxiety. Other people noticing your pain is not up to you. Other people responding the way you want is not up to you. But what you do next is, and that's where the shift begins. There's a moment, quiet, almost uncomfortable, when you realize that waiting to be noticed is costing you something. It costs you momentum. It costs you clarity. It costs you respect for yourself. Because every time you delay your life in hopes of a response, you're handing your agency to someone who may never pick it up. The Stoics didn't say, stop caring. They said, stop bargaining your peace. They knew that pain doesn't need an audience to be real. And healing doesn't need permission to begin. This doesn't mean becoming cold. It means becoming honest. Honest about how often you've paused your growth to see if anyone was watching. Honest about how many choices you deferred because you wanted reassurance first. Honest about how much of your silence wasn't strength, but a question mark aimed at the world. And here's the deeper truth. Most people aren't ignoring you. They're managing their own survival. They're late on bills. They're distracted by pressure. They're carrying fears you'll never hear about. Their lack of response isn't a judgment. It's a limitation. When you really see that something loosens, you stop personalizing what was never personal. You stop turning neutral silence into self-accusation. You stop waiting for external signals to validate internal pain. And that's when Stoicism stops being an idea and starts becoming a practice. You learn to separate three things: what happened, what you're telling yourself about it, and what you choose to do next. The Stoics didn't call this emotional suppression. They called it clarity. Clarity is the ability to feel pain without letting it define your direction, to acknowledge disappointment without freezing your life around it, to accept that no one may ever fully understand you and still move forward with dignity. That's not resignation. That's maturity. Because the moment you stop hoping that pain alone will earn care, you reclaim something essential: your time, your energy, your authority. You don't disappear. You don't harden. You simply stop organizing your life around being noticed. And in doing that, you begin to notice yourself, what you need, what you tolerate, what you're ready to leave behind. This is the quiet turning point, the one that doesn't announce itself, the one that changes everything. Not because the world suddenly responds, but because you do. You begin to respond differently when you finally see it. Not everything that feels like neglect is intentional. Not every silence is a verdict. Not every unanswered moment is an act of cruelty. Most of the time, it's something simpler. They're busy. Picture an ordinary morning. A crowded freeway. Coffee cooling in a cup holder. A phone lighting up with alerts that won't stop. Bills due. A meeting starting in 5 minutes. A kid who didn't sleep well. A parent who needs help. A body already tired before the test begins. People move through their lives carrying invisible weight, just like you. So when they don't notice your exhaustion, when they miss the shift in your tone, when they don't ask the question you hoped they would, it isn't always because they don't care. It's because their attention is already spent. That realization can sting. At first it feels dismissive, like being told your pain didn't register. But if you stay with it long enough, it becomes something else. It becomes relieving. Because if their silence isn't a judgment, then it doesn't have to be a sentence. You don't have to build a story around it. You don't have to assume intent. You don't have to turn their distraction into your identity. Think about how often you've done the same thing. You meant to check in. You forgot. You saw a message and planned to respond later. Later never came. Not because you didn't care, because you were overwhelmed. That's human. The Stoics understood this deeply. They spent a lot of time studying human behavior, not to excuse it, but to see it clearly. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this every morning. He expected distraction. He expected selfishness. He expected people to act from their own pressures. not because he was cynical, but because it kept him from taking everything personally. This is where most suffering compounds. We take neutral events and attach harsh meaning to them. Someone doesn't respond. We tell ourselves we're forgettable. Someone doesn't notice our struggle. We tell ourselves we're invisible. But that meaning isn't coming from the event. It's coming from interpretation. Stoicism asks you to slow down right there, to pause between what happens and what you decide it means. Because once you confuse those two, you hand over control. You start living reactively, waiting for signals, reading into tone, scanning rooms for confirmation. And that kind of vigilance is exhausting. The Stoics didn't teach indifference to people. They taught independence from assumptions. They knew that other people's behavior is shaped by factors you'll never fully see. Pressures, fears, fatigue, private battles, just like yours. So instead of asking why didn't they care, Stoicism asks a quieter question. What's actually mine to manage here? Their attention isn't. Their timing isn't. Their capacity isn't. Your response is. Your standards are. Your next move is when you truly accept that people are busy, something subtle shifts. You stop hovering. You stop waiting for cues. You stop postponing your life. You don't need their awareness to take yourself seriously. This doesn't make you distant. It makes you grounded. Because now, your self-respect is no longer tied to how closely others are watching. You show up to work the same way, whether or not someone praises you. You follow through on your commitments, whether or not someone acknowledges the effort. You take care of your body, even when no one notices the change. That's not bitterness. That's maturity. The Stoics believe dignity comes from alignment, not applause. From doing what's right, even when it goes unseen. This is where many people get confused. They think accepting that others are busy means lowering expectations, settling, accepting less. It's the opposite. You raise expectations for yourself. You stop expecting attention to do the work that discipline was meant to do. You stop expecting reassurance to replace clarity. You stop expecting people to carry weight that was never theirs to hold. And in that release, you gain something solid, stability. Because now your sense of worth doesn't fluctuate with response times or body language or missed moments. It's rooted. You still care. You still connect. You still show kindness. But you don't collapse when others are absorbed in their own lives. You understand the difference between being unseen and being insignificant. One is common, the other is a lie. This perspective doesn't arrive all at once. It settles gradually. You notice it when a message goes unanswered and you don't spiral. When a room doesn't respond to you and you stay steady. When someone doesn't notice your effort and you continue anyway. That's Stoic strength in action. Quiet, unannounced, unbothered. Not because you've numbed yourself, but because you've stopped assigning meaning where it doesn't belong. People being busy isn't something you need to fight. It's something you need to factor in. Once you do, you stop wasting energy interpreting silence. You stop demanding clarity from people who don't have it to give. You stop waiting for understanding before moving forward. And when that happens, your life speeds up. Not in chaos, in direction. You begin acting from principle, not reaction. From intention, not expectation. This is the quiet freedom the Stoics pointed toward. The freedom that comes from seeing reality as it is not as you wish it would be. People are busy, imperfect, limited. So are you. And that shared limitation isn't a wall between you. It's the reason you can finally stop taking everything personally and start living deliberately. From here, the question isn't why didn't they notice? It's what am I going to do next? And that question belongs entirely to you. You begin to feel it the moment you stop waiting for something to change. Not outside, inside. The day doesn't suddenly get easier. People don't become more attentive. The world doesn't soften its edges. But something releases. The tension you didn't know you were carrying. The low-grade alertness. The habit of scanning for signs, because expectation is heavier than it looks. It sits quietly in the background, in the pause before you speak, in the second glance at your phone, in the way you hold back just in case. Expectation says maybe this time they'll show up, maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe this time I'll be met halfway. And when it doesn't happen, you don't just feel disappointed, you feel smaller. The Stoics noticed this pattern early on. They saw how much energy people wasted, not on effort, but on anticipation. They understood something that still feels counterintuitive today. Power doesn't grow when things go your way. It grows when you stop organizing your life around how things should go. When expectation dies, movement begins. You can see it in ordinary moments. A man sits in his car, after work, engine off, hands on the wheel. He meant to speak up in the meeting. He didn't. Part of him hoped someone would notice his restraint. They didn't. For a while, he sits there replaying it. Then something shifts. He starts the engine, drives home, eats, sleeps, shows up the next day differently. not louder, clearer. That's what the death of expectation looks like. No ceremony, no speech, just action without an audience. Stoicism never promised comfort. It promised leverage. Leverage comes from knowing exactly where your influence begins and ends. You don't control how people interpret you. You don't control when they understand you. You don't control whether they appreciate the effort, but you do control whether you keep moving. When you release the expectation of response, you reclaim your momentum. You stop rehearsing explanations. You stop holding your breath for approval. You stop delaying decisions until someone else confirms them. Expectation freezes people. It keeps them in draft mode, always, almost starting, always waiting for one more sign. The Stoics warned against this. They believed clarity was a moral duty. Not clarity about the world, but clarity about yourself. What you value, what you tolerate, what you will do, regardless of outcome. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself for this very reason: not to sound wise, but to stay awake. He knew how easy it was to slip into hoping instead of acting, hoping that others would change, hoping that circumstances would improve, hoping that recognition would arrive. He treated hope carefully, not as fuel, but as something that could weaken resolve if misused. Because hope placed in external things quietly hands over authority. You wait, you stall, you defer your strength. When expectation falls away, there's a strange calm that follows. Not relief, not happiness. Calm. The kind that shows up when you realize you no longer need permission to proceed. You don't need consensus. You don't need reassurance. You don't need to be understood first. You move because moving is aligned with who you are. This is where Stoicism separates itself from motivation. It doesn't hype you up. It grounds you. It says, do what needs to be done. Do it well. Do it quietly. Repeat, not because it guarantees results, but because it guarantees integrity. Expectation. What will I get if I do this? Stoic power asks. Who do I become if I do this anyway? That question changes behavior. You begin acting from identity instead of outcome. You keep your standards, even when no one is watching. You hold your boundaries, even when they cost you comfort. You stay consistent, even when progress feels invisible. This isn't detachment from life. It's engagement without dependence. You still want things. You still aim. You still care. But you no longer need the world to cooperate for you to respect yourself. And that's where strength settles in. Not in force, in steadiness. You feel it when disappointment arrives and doesn't derail you. When plans fall through and you adjust without resentment. When silence returns and you don't interpret it as rejection. Expectation dying doesn't make life smaller. It makes it more direct. There's less friction, less internal negotiation, less wasted motion. You stop performing resilience and start practicing it. The Stoics believed that freedom wasn't the absence of obstacles. It was the absence of unnecessary attachment. Attachment to praise. Attachment to validation. Attachment to how things are supposed to feel. Once those loosen, your energy returns to you. You sleep deeper. You decide faster. You recover quicker. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours to carry. Expectation is subtle. It hides behind patience, behind politeness, behind optimism. But when you see it clearly, you realize how much of your life was on hold because of it. Waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for closure, waiting for someone else to signal that it's time. Stoic power doesn't wait. It acts in alignment. It accepts the cost. It continues. This isn't about lowering standards. It's about relocating them. From other people's responses to your own conduct. From being seen to being solid. That's where expectation ends, and that's where real power begins. Not loud, not aggressive, just unmistakably grounded. From here on, your life stops revolving around what might happen and starts moving according to what matters. And that shift, quiet as it is, changes everything. When expectation finally loosens its grip, silence shows up in a different way. It's still quiet, still familiar, but it no longer feels the same. Because not all silence is equal. There's the silence that shrinks you, and there's the silence that steadies you. Most people learn the first one early. It's the silence after you say something and regret it. The silence when you feel exposed. The silence you choose because you're afraid of being seen the wrong way. That silence tightens the chest. It makes you rehearse conversations that never happen. It keeps you small. You don't speak because you're ashamed of what you feel. You don't set boundaries because you don't want to be difficult. You don't ask for space because you're afraid it will cost you connection. So you stay quiet. But it's not peaceful. It's heavy. You can feel it when you drive home with the radio off, replaying the same moment. When you lie awake, thinking about what you should have said. when you nod along, even though something inside you resists. That silence isn't strength. It's self-abandonment. But there's another kind of silence, and it feels completely different. This silence doesn't come from fear. It comes from clarity. You feel it when someone misreads you and you don't rush to correct them. When a comment lands wrong and you let it pass. When you decide not to explain yourself because you know where you stand. Your shoulders drop. Your breath slows. There's no inner debate. You're not quiet because you're scared. You're quiet because you're done negotiating. That's silence by strength. The Stoics were very clear about this distinction, even if they didn't use those exact words. They believed restraint was powerful only when it was chosen, not when it was forced by fear of rejection or loss. Epictetus warned against confusing endurance with virtue. Endurance without awareness isn't discipline. It's habit. Stoic silence isn't about swallowing everything. It's about deciding what deserves a response. There's a moment that reveals the difference. Someone says something unfair. Not cruel, just careless. You feel the familiar urge to explain, to defend, to clarify your intentions. Your mouth opens slightly, then you stop. Not because you feel unworthy of speaking, but because you see the situation clearly. You know explaining won't bring understanding. You know the energy would be wasted. You know who you are without proving it. So you choose silence. And instead of shrinking, you expand. This is where many people get Stoicism wrong. They think it's about suppressing emotion, about being distant, about acting like nothing touches you. That's not strength. That's avoidance. Stoic strength is the ability to feel everything without letting those feelings hijack your actions. It's the difference between holding your tongue because you're afraid and holding it because you've already decided what matters. One drains you, the other conserves you. Think about how often silence has cost you energy. The meetings where you didn't speak up and carried resentment home. The relationships where you kept the peace by betraying yourself. The moments you stayed quiet, hoping it would earn you approval. That silence always comes with a price. You feel it later, in irritation, in exhaustion, in a quiet sense of disrespect toward yourself. Silence by strength doesn't do that. It leaves you intact because it's backed by something solid, a standard. Stoicism places enormous emphasis on standards, not rules imposed from outside, but principles you agree to live by. When you're clear on your standards, silence becomes a tool instead of a refuge. You don't speak just to be heard. You don't react just to be seen. You don't explain just to feel safe. You act when action aligns with who you are, and you stay silent when silence does the same. This is especially difficult in a culture that rewards constant expression. In America, we're taught that speaking up equals strength, that visibility equals power, that silence means weakness or guilt. But that's only true when silence comes from fear. When silence comes from strength, it does something else entirely. It creates presence. People feel it even if they can't name it. The man who doesn't rush to justify himself. The woman who doesn't over-explain her boundaries. The person who listens more than they speak. There's weight there, not because they dominate the room, but because they're not pulled by it. The Stoics called this self-command. Not controlling others, controlling your impulses. The impulse to defend, the impulse to be liked, the impulse to smooth things over at your own expense. This kind of silence doesn't mean you never speak. It means when you do, your words land. They're not rushed. They're not emotional leakage. They're deliberate. And when you don't speak, it's not because you're shrinking. It's because you're choosing not to waste yourself. There's a simple way to tell which silence you're in. Ask yourself one question. Does this quiet make me smaller or more grounded? Shame-based silence leaves you tense. You replay it. You second-guess yourself. Strength-based silence leaves you calm. You move on. You stay present. The Stoics believed peace was a byproduct of alignment. When your actions match your values, there's very little inner noise. You don't need to rehearse explanations. You don't need to manage impressions. You don't need to justify your choices to everyone. That's not detachment from people. It's attachment to principle. And principles don't argue. They guide. Once you understand this difference, your relationship with silence changes. You stop fearing it. You stop filling it with unnecessary words. You stop using it as a shield for insecurity. Silence becomes spacious, a place where you can think clearly, decide cleanly, act without dragging emotional weight behind you. This is where Stoic maturity begins to show, not in how much you can endure, but in how wisely you choose when to engage. You don't disappear. You don't withdraw from life. You simply stop leaking energy. And that shift from shame to strength doesn't announce itself. It shows up quietly in steadier decisions, cleaner boundaries, a sense of self that doesn't need constant reinforcement. Silence stops being something you hide behind and becomes something you stand within. Calm, upright, unmoved. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you know exactly who you are, even when you say nothing at all. Silence becomes steadier when you finally know what to do with it. Not as a mood, not as a defense, but as a signal. Because once you stop reacting automatically, you start noticing something subtle happening inside you. A gap, a small space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where Stoic discipline lives. Most people don't suffer because of what happens to them. They suffer because of what their mind does next. It happens fast. A message goes unanswered. A comment lands wrong. A meeting ends without your name being mentioned. And before you even realize it, a verdict forms. They don't respect me. I don't matter. This always happens to me. Your body reacts as if those thoughts were facts. Tight chest, short breath, a familiar heaviness. But here's the quiet truth. The Stoics built their entire philosophy around. Those thoughts are not the event. They are an interpretation. And interpretations can be changed. This is where the Stoic tool comes in. Simple, sharp, practical. Event, story, choice. You don't need a journal. You don't need a ritual. Just a few seconds of honesty. Let's slow it down. The event is what actually happened. Nothing added. Nothing removed. A text wasn't answered. Your idea wasn't acknowledged. Someone canceled plans. That's it. No meaning yet. No judgment. Just the raw fact. Now comes the part most people skip without realizing it. The story. This is where the mind fills the silence. It does it automatically. It does it convincingly. They're ignoring me. I said something wrong. I'm always the one left out. The story feels true because it's familiar. It's been rehearsed before. But familiar doesn't mean accurate. The Stoics were ruthless about this distinction. They believed most emotional suffering came from confusing stories with reality. Epictetus put it simply, what disturbs us is not the thing itself, but our judgment about it. Judgment is the story. And once you see that something loosens, you realize the story isn't happening to you. You're telling it. Now comes the third step, the only one that actually changes anything. Choice. Not the perfect choice, not the heroic one, just the next aligned action. This is where Stoicism stops being philosophical and becomes behavioral. You ask yourself one quiet question. Given the event as it is, and knowing the story is optional, what is the strongest response available to me right now? Not the loudest, not the most emotional, the strongest. Sometimes that choice is to speak clear, brief, direct. Sometimes it's to stay silent and keep moving, to not explain, to not correct, to not chase clarity from someone who doesn't have it. Sometimes the choice is physical. A walk, a workout, a task completed cleanly, because action grounds you faster than rumination ever will. This is how Stoics train their minds, not by suppressing thoughts, but by interrogating them. They treated every emotional surge like a signal flare, not something to obey blindly, but something to examine. Let's put this into a real moment. You send a message. Hours pass, no reply. The event is neutral. The story rushes in. They saw it. They don't care. I shouldn't have reached out. You feel the pull to double text, to apologize, to withdraw. Pause. Event, story, choice. The event hasn't changed. The story is just one interpretation. The choice is yours. You put the phone down. You go back to what matters. You don't perform uncertainty. That single decision does something important. It preserves your self-respect. Stoicism is deeply concerned with self-respect. More than happiness, more than comfort. Because without it, nothing else holds. When you practice event story choice consistently, your inner world starts to reorganize. You stop catastrophizing neutral moments. You stop assigning intent without evidence. You stop letting other people's availability dictate your emotional state. This isn't detachment from life. It's precision. You become precise about where pain actually comes from, not from events, from stories. And once you see that clearly, you stop feeding the stories that weaken you. This doesn't mean you never feel hurt. It means hurt no longer runs the show. You feel it, you name it, you choose anyway. The Stoics believed this was the foundation of freedom. Not freedom from hardship, but freedom from unnecessary suffering. You don't argue with reality. You don't dramatize it. You meet it cleanly. Over time, this practice does something profound. It shortens recovery time. What used to derail you for days now passes in minutes. What used to spiral into self-doubt now becomes information. You start responding instead of reacting, and people notice even if they can't explain why. You're calmer, more grounded, less needy for reassurance. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped confusing noise with truth. Event story choice is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming accurate. Accurate about what happened. Accurate about what you're telling yourself. Accurate about what actually deserves your energy. This is Stoic discipline in its most usable form. No slogans, no performance, just clarity, practiced one moment at a time. And here's the quiet payoff. Every time you choose based on alignment instead of interpretation, you reinforce a deeper belief. I can trust myself, not the world, not timing, not other people's responses, yourself. That trust compounds. It shows up in how you speak, how you wait, how you move through uncertainty without collapsing into it. You stop asking, "What does this mean about me?" and start asking, "What's the strongest move from here?" That question alone changes the trajectory of a life. Not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily, moment by moment, event, story, choice. And with enough repetition, the story loses its grip. What remains is a person who can stand inside silence without being shaken by it. Clear, capable, free to act. That trust doesn't stay abstract for long. It looks for a place to land, and it usually starts small. A moment most people dismiss, a minor friction, nothing dramatic. You send a message, you don't hear back. You walk into a meeting. Your idea passes through the room without stopping. You hold the door for someone. They don't say thank you. These aren't crises, they're everyday tests. And they matter more than we think. Because character isn't built in big moments. It's built in how you respond to the small ones. Picture a weekday afternoon. Office lights humming. A half-empty water bottle on the desk. You glance at your phone. Still nothing. There's a familiar itch in your chest. A quiet urge to do something. To follow up, to explain, to make sure you didn't come across the wrong way. That urge is old, it's trained. It whispers that relief lives on the other side of reassurance. This is where the Stoic loop begins. Conflict, choice, character. The conflict is small but real. Not the absence of a reply, the absence of certainty. Your mind fills the gap fast. Maybe I shouldn't have sent that. Maybe I'm not a priority. Maybe this is how it always goes. You can feel the pull toward reaction. Your fingers hover. Your attention narrows. And then you remember something. This is an event, not a verdict. So you pause, not dramatically, just long enough to choose. The choice isn't to suppress the feeling, it's to not obey it. You set the phone down. You return to what's in front of you. You finish the task cleanly. Nothing on the outside changes. No notification arrives. No explanation appears. But something inside you does. You didn't chase. You didn't apologize for existing. You didn't collapse into interpretation. That's a small win. It doesn't feel heroic. It feels quiet. And that's the point. Stoicism isn't built on big declarations. It's built on these quiet refusals. The refusal to leak self-respect over minor uncertainty. The refusal to hand your center to every moment. These choices don't announce themselves, they accumulate. Later that day, another test arrives. A comment from a coworker, half joking, half dismissive, the kind that used to hook you. You feel the familiar heat rise, the desire to correct the record, to make sure you're understood. You listen, you breathe, you respond simply, or you don't respond at all. You choose not to defend what doesn't need defending. Again, nothing explodes. The world doesn't shift, but you walk away intact. This is how character is shaped, not through confrontation, through consistency. The Stoics believed virtue was a habit, not an idea. They weren't impressed by people who spoke well about strength. They watched how people behaved under mild pressure. Anyone can hold it together during a crisis. Few can stay grounded when things are merely inconvenient. That's where discipline shows. These small moments teach your nervous system something important. You don't need immediate resolution to be okay. You don't need every interaction to go your way. You don't need to win every exchange to respect yourself. Over time, your reactions change. You're slower to personalize, quicker to move on. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop replaying neutral moments as failures. Not because you don't care, because you care differently. Your energy stays with you. There's a subtle shift that happens when this loop repeats. People begin to experience you as steady, not passive, not distant, steady. You don't flinch at small slights. You don't overcorrect. You don't perform confidence. You simply act from your standard. And standards are felt. They show up in posture, in pacing, in the absence of unnecessary explanation. The Stoics understood that self-command was contagious, not in a loud way, in a grounding way. People adjust around someone who doesn't chase equilibrium, who doesn't demand reassurance, who doesn't escalate minor friction into emotional noise. But this isn't about how others respond. That's a side effect. The real change is internal. You begin to trust your responses. You don't second-guess every choice. You don't look back constantly, wondering if you did the right thing. You made a decision. You stood by it. You moved on. That's character forming. not rigid, not defensive, reliable. There's a line the Stoics return to often, not in words but in practice. Do what is yours to do. Leave the rest alone. Small conflicts are training grounds. They teach you how much control you're willing to give away, how quickly you rush to be understood, how often you abandon your own center for relief. Each time you choose differently, you reinforce a new pattern. A man who doesn't double text. A woman who doesn't over-explain. A person who doesn't need to be seen immediately to stay whole. These aren't personality traits. They're choices practiced daily, and they add up. Weeks go by, then months. You notice something surprising. The same situations don't hook you the way they used to. You're not numb. You're just less reactive. You've proven to yourself quietly, repeatedly, that you can handle uncertainty without shrinking. That's dignity, not the kind that demands respect, the kind that generates it naturally. And it all started with something small, an unanswered message, a missed acknowledgement, a moment you chose not to chase. Conflict, choice, character. This is the Stoic loop at work, not dramatic, not glamorous, effective. Because when life brings bigger tests, and it will, you won't be learning how to stand. You'll already know how. Built slowly, one small choice at a time. Calm under pressure, clear in response, grounded in yourself. That's not accidental. That's character earned. Small choices build steadiness, but eventually life raises the volume. Not a crisis, not a collapse, a moderate conflict, the kind that tests your boundaries. It happens at work, in a relationship, in a place where your time, energy, or dignity is quietly assumed. A meeting runs long. Your workload grows heavier than everyone else's. A request comes in late, framed as casual, but it isn't. Can you handle this too? It'll only take a minute. We really need you on this. You hear it. You feel the familiar pressure behind your ribs. Not fear, responsibility. This is where many people fold. They say yes too quickly. They explain too much. They agree, then resent it later. Not because they're weak, because they confuse kindness with availability. Stoicism draws a sharp line here between cooperation and self-erasure, between service and surrender. The conflict isn't loud, but it's real. You're being pulled slightly off center. Your instinct says, don't make it awkward. Don't push back. Just handle it. But there's another voice now, quieter, clearer. It asks a different question. Does this align with my standard. This is where boundaries enter. Not as walls, as definitions. A boundary isn't an argument. It isn't an explanation. It isn't a performance. It's a decision expressed cleanly. You take a breath. You look up. You speak once. I can't take that on right now. No apology, no story, no justification, just truth. The room doesn't explode. No one storms out. The world keeps turning. But something shifts. Not outside, inside. Your body relaxes. Your voice stays even. You don't replay the moment later. That's quiet authority. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand compliance. It stands. The Stoics understood this kind of authority well. They didn't believe strength came from dominance. They believed it came from self-command, from knowing your limits and honoring them without drama. Epictetus taught that no one can compel your mind without your consent, but consent isn't always loud. Often, it's given through small concessions, through over-explaining, through saying yes when you mean no. Boundaries reclaim that consent, not aggressively, precisely. This is why Stoic boundaries are short. They don't persuade. They state. The moment you start justifying your boundary, you invite negotiation. And negotiation is where authority leaks. Quiet authority doesn't argue its case. It trusts it. This can feel uncomfortable at first, especially in a culture that rewards friendliness, that equates likability with success, that trains people to smooth edges. But Stoicism asks for something sturdier than approval. It asks for alignment. When your words match your values, there's no friction inside. You don't need to rehearse what you said. You don't need to check if it landed well. You meant it. You said it. You move on. That internal cleanliness is rare, and people feel it. They may not like it at first. They may test it, a follow-up request, a subtle guilt frame. Are you sure everyone else is pitching in? We were counting on you. This is the real test, not the first boundary. The second, you don't escalate. You don't retreat. You repeat the boundary unchanged. I'm not available for that. Same tone, same calm. This isn't stubbornness. It's consistency. The Stoics valued consistency above intensity. Anyone can push back once. Few can hold a line without hostility. That's where authority forms, not from force, from predictability. People learn how to interact with you by watching what you tolerate. If your boundaries shift under pressure, they'll apply pressure. If your boundaries stay steady, they adjust. This isn't manipulation. It's human nature. The Stoics studied human nature not to control others, but to avoid being controlled by it. They knew that resentment grows when boundaries are unclear. You say yes, then feel used. You stay silent, then feel invisible. You comply, then carry bitterness home. Quiet authority prevents this cycle. It protects your energy before it turns sour, and it does so without aggression. There's no need to harden, no need to posture. You're not pushing people away. You're defining how close they can come. That distinction matters. Boundaries don't end relationships. They clarify them. The relationships that survive clarity were never dependent on your self-erasure. The ones that don't weren't sustainable anyway. Stoicism is honest about this cost. It doesn't promise universal approval. It promises self-respect. And self-respect is non-negotiable. You feel it when you leave a conversation without tension in your chest. When you go home without replaying the exchange. When your mind is quiet instead of rehearsing defenses. That's the reward. Not dominance. Peace. Over time, this kind of authority changes how you move. You speak less, but with more weight. You don't rush to fill silence. You don't explain your priorities to everyone. You live them. People begin to trust your no, because your yes means something. This is the Stoic idea of justice in action. Not fairness as sentiment, but fairness as consistency. You're fair to others because you're fair to yourself. You don't overpromise. You don't overextend. You don't resent what you agreed to. That balance is strength. And it's quiet. No speeches. No ultimatums. Just clean lines held calmly. Moderate conflicts are where this strength is forged, not in emergencies, in everyday moments where you could give a little more than you should. Each time you hold your boundary without bitterness, you reinforce something deeper. I don't need to overgive to be valued. That belief settles into your posture, your tone, your presence. Quiet authority becomes natural, not because you hardened, but because you stopped abandoning yourself for comfort. This is Stoic power at a higher level, not reaction, not withdrawal, balance. You engage without being consumed. You contribute without disappearing. You stand your ground without raising your voice. That's the kind of strength that lasts. And once it's there, it doesn't leave. It becomes the way you walk into rooms, the way you answer requests, the way you carry yourself when expectations press in. Calm, clear, unmoved, not because nothing affects you, because you've decided what does. Eventually, life stops testing you with small frictions. It brings something heavier, a loss you didn't plan for, a door that closes without warning, a moment where the ground under you gives way, a job disappears, a relationship ends without closure, a diagnosis changes the timeline of your life. This isn't a missed message anymore. This isn't a boundary conversation. This is impact, the kind that knocks the air out of your chest and leaves you standing still long after the moment has passed. You feel it in the quiet that follows. The house feels larger, time slows down. Simple tasks feel strangely distant. Your mind reaches for explanations, for someone to blame, for a version of the story where this didn't happen. But there is no undo button here. This is where many people break. Not because the pain is unbearable, but because they keep fighting the fact that it exists. They replay the moment endlessly. They bargain with the past. They imagine alternate outcomes. And every replay deepens the wound. The Stoics had a word for this kind of turning point: amor fati. It's often translated as love of fate, but that misses the weight of it. This isn't passive acceptance. It's not pretending the pain is good. It's the decision to stop resisting reality and start working with it, to say quietly, "This is what I've been given." Now, what amor fati doesn't ask you to enjoy hardship. It asks you to integrate it, to stop treating what happened as an interruption and begin treating it as material. Material for character, material for clarity, material for strength. This is where discipline enters, not as punishment, as structure. When life collapses, something important, your emotions will be unstable. That's human. What steadies you isn't motivation, it's routine. The Stoics knew this. They didn't rely on willpower during chaos. They relied on habits already in place. Wake up at the same time. Move your body even when you don't feel like it. Eat simply. Sleep when you can. Do one thing well today. Discipline becomes the handrail you grip when the stairs disappear. It doesn't remove grief. It prevents free fall. Think about the moments after a major loss, the urge to isolate, the temptation to abandon structure, the quiet voice that says, "Nothing matters now." That voice sounds convincing. It isn't wise. Stoicism doesn't deny grief. It denies collapse. It recognizes that when control is gone, externally, internal order matters more than ever. You don't force yourself to feel better. You give yourself something solid to do. Laundry folded cleanly. A walk taken without headphones. a workout finished even at half effort. These aren't distractions, they're anchors. Each small act says something important to your nervous system. I am still here. I can still act. I haven't lost myself. Amor Fati is what allows this shift. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you ask, "How will I carry this?" That question changes everything. Because now, the pain has a direction. It moves you inward instead of outward, toward responsibility instead of resentment. The Stoics believed fate wasn't an enemy. It was a training partner. Not gentle, not fair, but honest. Whatever shows up is what you train with. You don't get to choose the weight. You choose how you lift it. This is where discipline becomes identity. Not a temporary response, a way of being. You don't train to escape pain. You train to remain intact within it. Over time, something unexpected happens. The pain doesn't vanish, but it stops defining you. You wake up one morning and notice you moved without thinking about the loss first. You complete a task without the heaviness pulling you back. You laugh once briefly and don't feel guilty for it. This isn't betrayal of what mattered. It's integration. The Stoics understood that resisting fate keeps you stuck at the point of impact. Accepting it allows you to move forward, carrying its weight properly. Amor Fati doesn't mean approval. It means alignment. Alignment with reality as it is not as it should have been. And discipline is how you maintain that alignment day after day, without speeches, without inspiration, just showing up. There's a particular kind of strength that forms here, not confidence, not optimism, reliability. You become someone who can be counted on even when the world has taken something important away. That reliability isn't for others first, it's for you. You trust yourself to endure, to adapt, to rebuild without bitterness. This is why Stoicism endures through centuries of loss and upheaval. It doesn't promise protection, it promises preparation. When you live this way long enough, you begin to see hardship differently, not as proof that life is unfair, it is. That was never in question, but as proof that you are capable of standing inside unfairness without dissolving. That realization is sobering and empowering. You stop waiting for life to make sense. You stop needing closure before moving on. You accept the weight and keep walking. That's amor fati in practice. Not a quote, not a slogan, a posture. Facing forward, shoulders squared, hands steady, and discipline is what keeps you upright. When nothing else is certain, you know what to do today and tomorrow and the day after that. This is how big conflicts stop destroying people, not by disappearing, but by being absorbed into a stronger frame. You don't come out untouched. No one does. You come out structured, clearer about what matters, less dependent on what you can't control. And quietly, without announcing it, you realize something profound. This didn't end you. It shaped you. And because you did not fight reality, because you didn't collapse into it, you're still moving. Steadily, deliberately, with fate beside you, not against you. And that is Stoic strength at its deepest level. The room feels different when you stop trying to be felt. Not empty, not cold, just quieter. And in that quiet, something unexpected happens. You don't disappear. You settle. You notice it the first time you walk into a space without preparing yourself for it. No rehearsed lines, no subtle scanning for reactions, no internal calculation about how you're being received. You just arrive. Your shoulders are relaxed. Your pace is unhurried. You take a seat without claiming one. Nothing about you is loud, but people notice. This is the paradox most people never experience. The less you chase validation, the more present you become. And presence carries weight. Loud validation is seductive. It promises relief, a hit of reassurance, a quick signal that you matter. Likes, praise, approval in real time. It feels good, briefly, but it's unstable. Because the moment you depend on it, you're pulled outward. Your attention splits. Part of you is always checking, always measuring, always adjusting. You're there, but not fully. Stoicism saw this clearly long before social feeds and comment sections. The Stoics warned against placing your center of gravity outside yourself, not because recognition is wrong, but because dependence is costly. When validation gets loud, presence gets thin. You're busy performing your life instead of living it. Quiet presence is different. It doesn't ask for confirmation. It doesn't announce itself. It's felt in how you listen, in how you pause before speaking, in how you don't rush to fill space. Think about the people you trust most. They're not the ones constantly explaining themselves. They're not the ones demanding agreement. They're the ones who seem settled. They speak when they have something to say. They stop when they don't. They don't chase reactions. Their calm sets the tone. The Stoics understood this kind of influence. They didn't call it charisma. They called it alignment. When your actions match your values, you don't need applause to reinforce them. You don't need to remind people who you are. Your behavior does that quietly. This is especially noticeable in moments of tension. A disagreement arises. Voices rise around you. You don't escalate. You don't withdraw. You stay steady. You let others exhaust their arguments. You respond briefly, or you don't respond at all. That restraint changes the energy in the room, not because you dominate it, but because you're not pulled into it. Quiet presence creates gravity. People lean in instead of pushing against you. This isn't a tactic, it's a consequence. When you stop needing validation, you stop broadcasting insecurity. And insecurity is loud. It rushes. It interrupts. It over-explains. Presence doesn't do any of that. Presence waits. The Stoics believed that how you carry yourself under scrutiny mattered more than how you performed under praise. Anyone can look confident when things go well. Few can remain composed when no one is clapping. That's the real test. You feel it when you finish something meaningful and don't tell anyone. When you make a hard decision and don't justify it publicly. When you change internally without narrating the process. There's a quiet satisfaction there, not pride. Completion. You don't need witnesses to validate the work. The work validates itself. This is where many people get uncomfortable, because loud validation feels safer than silence. Silence leaves room for doubt, for misinterpretation, for being overlooked. But Stoicism doesn't fear being overlooked. It fears being unmoored, being pulled by trends, by opinions, by the need to be affirmed at every turn. Quiet presence anchors you. It allows you to be misunderstood without scrambling to correct it, to be underestimated without rushing to prove otherwise. That's not arrogance, that's patience. Patience grounded in self-knowledge. You know what you're building. You know why you're building it. You don't need everyone to understand it now. The Stoics believed time was the ultimate clarifier, not argument, not explanation. Time combined with consistency. You show up the same way, regardless of audience size. You hold the same standards, whether or not they're noticed. You don't inflate your effort to secure praise. Over time, that steadiness becomes unmistakable. People may not remember what you said. They remember how grounded you felt. That's presence. And it beats loud validation every time. Because loud validation fades quickly. It needs to be renewed, upgraded, maintained. Presence compounds. It grows with repetition, with restraint, with integrity. You feel it when someone trusts your word without needing details. When your silence is taken seriously. When your absence is felt. not because you demanded importance, because you embodied it. Stoicism never aimed to make people impressive. It aimed to make them unshakable. And unshakable people don't need to announce their worth. They move with a certain economy. They don't waste energy convincing. They don't chase alignment from the outside. They create it internally. This doesn't mean you reject all validation. It means you don't rely on it. If praise comes, you receive it without leaning on it. If it doesn't, you continue without resentment. Your center doesn't move. That stability is rare, and rarity attracts attention naturally. Not because you're trying to be seen, but because you're not trying to be anything else. There's a moment you'll recognize if you pay attention. Someone questions your choice, your pace, your quiet, and you don't rush to answer. You don't feel threatened. You don't feel compelled. You smile slightly. You continue. That's when you realize something important. You're no longer negotiating your existence. You're inhabiting it. Quiet presence isn't about being withdrawn. It's about being rooted. Rooted in principle, in self-command, in a clear sense of what matters. The Stoics believed this was the highest form of freedom, not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to not be pulled apart by what doesn't matter. Loud validation keeps you reactive. Quiet presence keeps you directed. One scatters your energy, the other concentrates it. And in a world that rewards noise, concentration is power. You don't need to say much. You don't need to be everywhere. You just need to be where you are fully. That's enough. More than enough. Because when presence replaces performance, your life stops being a message to others and starts being a practice for yourself. Steady, intentional, unforced. Quiet presence beats loud validation because it doesn't ask to be believed. It's felt. And once it's felt, it doesn't need to be explained. The quiet stays with you now, not the empty kind, the settled kind, the kind that doesn't rush to be filled. You notice it when you wake up and don't reach for your phone right away. When a plan changes and your chest doesn't tighten. When something doesn't work out and you don't collapse into explanation. You stand there, breathing, present. That's when the realization finishes forming. You were never powerless. You just learned to look for power in places that couldn't hold it, in other people's attention, in timing, in outcomes you couldn't command. When those things failed you, it felt like something had been taken away. But nothing essential ever was. What you thought was missing was always intact, waiting for you to stop outsourcing it. The Stoics didn't promise a life without pain. They promised a life where pain didn't own you. They taught that the moment you stop waiting for the world to carry you, your posture changes. Your shoulders settle. Your breath deepens. Your mind clears. You stop asking, "Why didn't they see me?" and start asking, "What am I choosing now?" That question is power, not because it fixes everything, but because it puts you back in the driver's seat of your inner life. You begin to see how much energy was spent chasing reactions, trying to be understood, trying to be chosen, not out of vanity, out of survival. But survival doesn't require applause. It requires steadiness. And you've been building that quietly all along. In the moments you didn't react, in the boundaries you held without explanation, in the routines you kept when motivation disappeared. None of that was wasted. That was training. You weren't failing because no one came. You were being prepared for the moment you realized you didn't need them to. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop depending. There's a difference. You can still love deeply, still show up, still contribute, but you no longer hand over your center in exchange for comfort. You don't negotiate your worth. You don't chase closure. You don't beg for clarity from people who don't have it themselves. You move forward with what's real. This is the Stoic shift. From needing the world to validate you, to validating yourself through action. Not affirmations, not speeches. Action. You do the work, even when it's quiet. You hold your standards, even when no one's watching. You choose discipline over drama. And over time, something changes. Life doesn't get easier. You get sturdier. Disappointment still arrives. But it doesn't dismantle you. Silence still happens. But it doesn't erase you. You understand now that being unseen is not the same as being insignificant. Some of the strongest things in the world grow underground first. Roots don't need witnesses. They need depth. The Stoics believed that freedom was internal. Not freedom from difficulty, but freedom from being ruled by it. When you accept that no one is coming to save you, you don't harden. You focus. You stop performing pain. You stop advertising struggle. You stop turning every feeling into a signal. You handle your life privately, deliberately, and that privacy becomes strength. Because you're no longer living on display. You're living in alignment. There's a calm that comes with that. Not the calm of avoidance. The calm of self-command. You know what you'll tolerate. You know what you won't. You know how you'll respond when things go wrong. That knowledge is grounding. It means you don't need guarantees to proceed. You don't need permission to act. You don't need someone else to confirm that you're allowed to take the next step. You already are. You were never powerless. You were just waiting for the wrong signal. Power was never meant to be granted to you. It was meant to be claimed through responsibility. Responsibility for your reactions, your choices, your direction. That's why Stoicism endures. It doesn't offer escape, it offers orientation. When everything feels uncertain, you know where to stand. When others pull away, you don't chase. When the room goes quiet, you don't disappear. You remain. And remaining is an act of courage. This path isn't loud. It doesn't trend well. It doesn't promise instant relief. But it builds something rare. A person who can be alone without being lonely. Who can be overlooked without shrinking. Who can be challenged without unraveling. A person whose presence doesn't depend on being validated. That's the kind of strength that lasts, not because it resists the world, because it doesn't need to. If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in it, know this. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to reinvent your life overnight. You just need to keep choosing what you already know is right. One response at a time, one boundary at a time, one disciplined day at a time. That's enough. And if tonight feels quiet, let it. Silence is no longer a threat. It's proof that you've stopped performing and started standing. You were never powerless. You were becoming, and you still are. Keep walking, keep choosing, keep building, quietly, steadily. That's how real strength lives.